My name is Dan Bullheis. I'm the principal at Orchard View High School. I would like to recognize the guests that we do have here today. Area resource officers from the Career Tech Center Health and Law Enforcement programs, 70x7 Recovery, Whitehall Middle School, and Muskegon Health Project. This event is called Shattering the Myths. It is an initiative to educate us on the negative impact of drug use in our community. Today, Muskegon County Prosecutor DJ Hilson will be moderating. I'm going to let him introduce the speakers.
All right, thank you. I'm sure you are all voluntold to be here today, but I appreciate it because ultimately you're going to hear some really powerful messages today, so I hope that you all pay attention. Sitting right next to me, who's going to be our first speaker, is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Dale Quigley. He is from Colorado. I'll have a deeper biography for him in just a second. Also joining us here this afternoon is John Workman. John Workman is co-owner and co-CEO of Eagle Alloy, one of the major employers here in Muskegon County. So I want you to pay attention to what he has to say. And next to Mr. Workman is a former Cardinal, right?
Yep.
Former Orchard View Cardinal, Cody Hill. And her story is very powerful. So, I mean, everything you're going to hear today is important, but I really want you to pay attention to what Cody has to say. So without further ado, the other thing too, and I know Mr. Bullheis just kind of indicated that, but this event is offered in cooperation with 70x7, the Muskegon Area Intermediate School District, Muskegon County Parole Office, Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office, Muskegon County Sheriff's Office, Muskegon Township Police Department, Orchard View Schools, and Public Health of Muskegon County. So what I'd like to do now is formally introduce Mr. Dale Quigley. Mr. Dale Quigley, who goes by the nickname Quig, and so you're free to use that if you ask questions of him, is the Deputy Coordinator of the National Marijuana Initiative for the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Program in the United States. He's responsible for providing information and education on issues surrounding marijuana. Prior to this, he had served at the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area in Denver from 2011 to 2016 as the Manager of Intelligence and later overseeing the training program. He has a Bachelor's of Science degree in Criminal Justice. He has been a peace officer in the state of Colorado since 1979, and in January of 2016, he retired as a sergeant for the Aurora Police Department. He has extensive experience in the area of drug trafficking. He spent a lot of his career investigating and being a part of that, including work with a gang-related task force with the FBI. He has been recognized as an expert in this subject matter in several aspects, including regular appearances both at the regional, national, and international level. He's spoken at a lot of different places, a lot of different conferences. It's truly a pleasure to have him. The other really important thing about Mr. Quigley that I want you all to know is that he's a father, he's raised 2 daughters, and just recently has become a grandfather of 1. So kids play a very important role in his life, so I want you to keep that in mind. Without further...
My bank account dry.
Right. Well, Dale Quigley.
Thank you, sir. Bruce, would you bring it up on the screen for me, please? So let's talk a little bit about this. I got to tell you, when I was your age bracket about 1 million years ago, admittedly, okay, I always hated being talked down to, and even as an adult, it made me mad. It's condescending. I took it very much a great deal of offense. When we had the discussion about presenting to you guys, the question I had come at me, well, are you going to dummy down your material? And I thought, oh, no, why would I even begin to do that? It's important that you guys have some facts. So I want you to understand the reason I'm here, yeah, I am a dad, I am a grandfather, I spent 40 years in law enforcement. I've got my own views on legalization, but that's not why we're here. This is about giving you a chance to get some information. So for the few minutes that we've got together, let's talk about what this is going to be. This is you, this is your future, this is choices that you'll have a chance to make as you go down the road here. More importantly, what I want you to understand is what this is not going to be. This is not going to be reefer madness, demon weed. You're not going to hear that from me today, okay? You've had the information, if you've gone through the educational system, you understand the adverse effects of drug use, so there's no sense of beating that down. The reason we don't use a reefer madness approach, it doesn't work. Has anyone seen the movie Reefer Madness? Okay, It's humorous to the point of being sad. And it was an attempt at public service information messaging, and it just didn't work, and it still doesn't resonate today. What this is going to be more about is going to be about you. It's going to be about giving you the chance to hear some facts and information. Understand this, is that we've got choices in our life. Choices have consequences. Some of them are short-term, some of them are long-term. How many of you guys are 17 right now? Wow, okay. Guess what happens when you turn 18? You get a whole brand new clean slate to work with. The problem is choices you make as an adult, they're going to stay with you. So it's important to understand this. As you have choices, it's good to have your own opinion at this. And I'll tell you right now, if you came in here today, like I said, being voluntold to be here, if you're here pro-marijuana, that's going to be how you're going to leave today. And if you're here in favor of keeping it illegal, that's how you're going to be leaving today. And if you're not sure where you stand, well, I'm going to give you a few things to think about. But I want you to have the opportunity that when you're presented with that option, when you're presented with a choice, you go, yep, I know what I know from here, and I know what I know from here. And I would challenge you that when, regardless of who tells you something, whether it's me or some other dusty old guy, or even your peer group, when they tell you something good or bad about a particular drug or a substance, challenge them on it. Where you get the information, find out how valid it is so you can make a good choice. One of the things we need to understand that very few things in life are this simple and this clear. Life is full of choices, and very seldom are you going to get something that's just this absolutely concrete, black or white. When we talk about drug use, and specifically we talk about marijuana, especially in this day and our age, because the marijuana that we have now is so much different than what we had when I grew up, okay? Especially related to potency. We'll talk about that. This is not an accurate way to portray this issue. This is a more accurate way to look at it. It's choices. It's built on issues that are built on other issues, that are built on platforms, that are built on other designs, okay? It's not that simple. The problem that you're going to have to deal with this drug as you get older is that the choices you make today can and will follow you if you make the wrong ones. So it's about having good information to work with. So let me ask you a question. Show of hands. Who's planning on going to college? Bless you. All right, that's great. Now, leave your hands up for a second if you're going to college. Leave your hands up if you're going to college because you want to or because mom and dad are telling you to. Far out. Okay, excellent. You know what? Since this is about you, I want to start with college. Not even going to talk about drugs at this point. We're going to talk about college. We're going to talk what the true benefit to you is by going to school. So let's take a look at earning and unemployment. Let's take a look at the rates that we've got for 2017 from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. On the left-hand side here, if you can't read it because it's a little digitized, less than a high school diploma. You got about 6.5% probability of being unemployed. The more education you get, the longer you stay with it. And I get it. By the time you're seniors, you got senioritis, you just want to get out. I was the same way. I wanted out. I was tired of what the high schools were teaching. I wanted to learn the things that I was interested in. So you stay with it for a couple, 2, 4, 6 more years and get the degrees. The higher you go, the lower your probability of unemployment is. What that translates into is the lower probability of unemployment means you're going to make more money. When we take a look at average weekly earnings from last year, we can see that less than a high school, it's about $520 a week. The longer you stay in school, the more your earning potential becomes. And when you stretch that out over a year, more importantly, when you stretch that over a period of 30 to 35 years, it equates to a great deal of money. And again, understand, this isn't money in your pocket. This is pre-tax money. This is pre-investment money. But see the difference over a lifetime that's staying in school, doing well in school, and what it can do for you on the outside. Now, let's translate this to school. There's lots of misinformation about marijuana out there. Let's clear a couple of these up. First off, let's talk about weed, school, and you. College campuses right now in the United States, what are the 2 most popular drugs on campuses? Weed and what else? No, not cocaine. Alcohol. Sadly, that's not far from the truth, and we'll touch on that here in just a few minutes, okay? But when we talk about these 2 drugs that are out there right now, these are the ones as freshmen you're going to be faced with most commonly, okay? They have things in common. You know, there's a lack of attendance at school, there's a lack of motivational interest in academic achievement. The sad thing is that the earlier you are when initiation begins, when you start using alcohol or drugs, the greater the possibility of you growing into a substance abuse disorder as you get older, okay? But you can turn these things around. So we're going to talk about this study. This is a study that specifically looked at freshmen coming into college. It was peer-reviewed. It was published by the Public Library of Science. So it's a credible study that's behind there. And it looked at incoming freshmen, a little over 1,100 freshmen, over a 2-year period. So it followed them through their freshman and their sophomore years. And what they had to do is, first thing, they had to self-admit. Do you use alcohol? Do you use drugs? To what extent you do. So they took the whole cohort that came in, and they divided them into these 3 groups. Cohort number 1, this is the low and no crew. This is the ones that, okay, I don't drink alcohol and I don't smoke weed. Okay, they're easy. Cohort number 2 is the moderate users. And cohort number 3 is the moderate to heavily self-reported users. Each of these students had to fill out a monthly survey even while they were out of school over summer break and to keep the survey going. Of the 3 groups, which do you think was the one that had the most difficulty in keeping grades up? 3, yeah, okay, you haven't got to be a rocket scientist to figure this one out. When we take a look at it, here's a couple of findings. They found consistently over that 2-year period, Group 3 consistently had a lower GPA, and I'll show you a quick graph on that here in a second. The second group, the first group, didn't have that many issues. As use continued, those GPAs continued to decrease or stay lower than the average. Now, the good news that came out of this, and this is encouraging, is even if you choose to use this, even if you choose to go down this path, and we don't use the term gateway drug, it's more of a pathway. If you choose to go down there, the group also found out that when they stopped smoking and or stopped drinking or decreased use in either, the grades actually did come back up. Performance was able to come back up. If you get yourself caught in this freshman, sophomore trap, there is a way out. Okay? Don't be afraid to ask for a little help on this one. Now, here's the graph. Blue is the low and no group. The green is the group that was using heavily. And you can see the difference in it. What I was digging around on the report that I wanted to share with you is this, that when you look at the average age, this is 18.3 years old. Okay? This is just about a year older than most of you. When we take a look at what do you define as drinking heavily? For them, they defined being a moderate to heavy drinker as 54 drinks during the course of a month. Okay? They talked about use of marijuana 13 times a month for self-reported use. When you break it down to daily uses, for the alcohol, it's about 2 drinks a day on an average. What it did not address in the study that I can't find any answers to is how much of this was binge drinking on the weekends at parties, where you let the dog off the leash. When we talk about marijuana use, what's interesting on this one, this ties into what current data is being looked at. When they look at your age bracket right now, 12 to 17-year-olds, they want to see what is a current use? And current use is being defined in the United States right now as at least 1 time per month. Now, for those of you who smoke more than that, you run your own risk on that one. But understand, this puts you into a current use rate. Now, who are my athletes in here? Raise your hand. Okay? Who's hoping to go to college and play sports in the college environment? Okay. I'm going to pick on you right here. Red hair, what we got, red sweatshirt on? What do you play? Football? What position? Are you good? Do you train hard? Do you have days that you're just having a great game and somebody else on your team just absolutely sucks? Okay. How does that make you feel when you're having a good game? Okay. Have you also had those days where you're the one that's dragging the dog across the field not doing too well? Yeah, you bring on the other players. There's a lot at stake here, especially when you play ball at college, you play sports at college, especially if you get in on a scholarship. They own you, guys. Both my daughters were competitive swimmers. They own you. So I would tell you, as we go through this, think about why would I create the opportunity to be the one guy on the team that drags the team down? We got to look, for college sports, we got to look at NCAA. National Collegiate Athletic Association. They are the governing body. They recently just put out a paper, and everything that we talked about is cite source down here at the bottom. If you need it, I can get it to you later. But NCAA has a couple of concerns. First off, they're concerned about the potency of today's marijuana. Nothing like what we had when I was younger, 3, 7, 10%. We've got potency of strains on the vine right now growing at over 32% potency of THC. We've got concentrates that are available to the open market right now in 90 to 99% potency ranges. This has got them hugely concerned because the NCAA is concerned about their athletes. They're concerned about their health. They're concerned about their athletic and academic performance. When you think about smoking weed as an athlete, what are you doing? You're disrupting your respiratory system. You're disrupting your cardiovascular system. If your body isn't properly oxygenated, how quick do your legs get tired when you're winded? Really quick, right? Okay? And also, there's not a sport out there, regardless of what it is, that isn't high eye, hand, foot, hand, leg, hand coordination. So if you impair that function, you're decreasing your probability of being a good athlete. Your biggest takeaway on this one, if you want to do this in school, is the NCAA has a zero tolerance policy. They do not care if you're going to school in a marijuana state. They do not care if you carry a medical marijuana card from that state. You get caught in the first violation, you lose half a scholarship, you lose half a playing season. Second violation, you lose full scholarship, you lose a full season. Not the way to start a college career in football, baseball, or basketball, okay? You got through school. You made it through sports. Your knees are still intact. Now you're going to graduate and you're going to get a job. Guys, it's a competitive world out there. Employers don't care about you finding yourself on their dime, okay? What they're concerned about is one thing. What is it? Money, profit, yeah. So I would tell you, when you go into the job market, as you're working your way through school, have this being the other goal in hand. How do I get that job that I'm really looking for? How do I keep that job that I'm looking for? To do that, you got to think like an employer does. So when we talk about drug use in the workplace, understand that there are impacts to it, specifically this, okay? An employer wants a safe and productive workplace because it means greater profits. You're going to hear from John in just a few minutes. He's going to touch a little bit on this. But understand, this is the motivation. This is the motivation behind it. Understand, marijuana creates a problem for an employer. Even in states where it is legal at the state level, it's still illegal at the federal level. And there's some positions, some jobs, that it's a zero tolerance. If they don't even get funded by the government if they don't have a drug-free workplace in action. Other thing that we're finding out too, marijuana also creates an issue with workplace safety. There is a correlation between increased accidents and injuries in the workplace for marijuana. It's really no different from alcohol. Really no different. But this problem, this is the one that haunts. Now, where this came to head for us in Colorado was a case called Coates versus Dish Network. Mr. Coates was involved in a traffic accident when he was a little younger than most of you guys are, confined to a wheelchair for his life. He used medical marijuana as a state-issued card. He used it for medicinal purposes to moderate his pain. He did it while he was off the clock and off the company premise. He tested hot on a urine test. Dish Network terminated him for a violation of the drug policy. They fought this as a wrongful termination all the way up through our Supreme Court. The court came back and said, you know what? Dish Network, as an employer, is within their rights to terminate. And we're seeing more and more cases across the country in the marijuana states where this is becoming an issue. So understand that there is problems to this. The other thing that's driving this one is we're going to go back to potency again. The potency level, the THC that's out there is so much higher than it has ever been before. The plant that God put on this earth is not what it's been genetically modified into and cloned into, okay? A lot of chemistry went into this. So let me ask you this, by a show of hands, who has heard this one? Marijuana is safer than other drugs or alcohol. You okay? I'll play. Let's look at this. So marijuana is safer. Let's break the words down. When it says it's safer, it's also telling you that there is a risk. There is a danger that goes along with usage. Okay, you have to enter in this. Is it as dangerous as fentanyl, heroin? No, probably not. Is it as dangerous as alcohol and other prescription drugs? Yeah. And we've got data that we can look at this thing, okay? Choices have consequences. People do not choose to become addicts. They don't choose to go down this path. They do choose to use. Addiction happens to be a byproduct of this choice. And a good takeaway for us to have on this one is not everyone who uses ends up getting addicted to a substance. But we are finding out with your age bracket, my friend that yelled that's safer, 1 in 6 of you at this age bracket, that initiate at this age bracket, will turn into a substance abuse addiction. And the earlier that initiation begins, the more problem it creates down the roads. Okay? The data is there to support it. Like any other drug, marijuana can be addictive. Like alcohol, like cocaine, like speed, it's all addictive. Depends on the person, depends on the addictive personality of the person, and it depends on the drug and the potency of the drug. Okay? Smoking and vaping is your fastest way of getting high. There's no secret to that one. You can consume edibles, but the problem with consuming edibles, it's not immediate. The body has to metabolize that. So when you're consuming edibles, you got to eat it, it's got to go through the system, so the reaction is delayed. So the tendency is to eat more of an edible. A vape pen is such an easy way to administer the substance, but because it's so easily to hit over and over again, you run the risk of overdosing. I don't mean overdosing like heroin, as an over-administration. Okay? Let's talk about that one for a second. Top 3 drugs in the United States. Top 3 drugs in the United States where people are seeking treatment for addiction. What's the first one do you think it is? Alcohol. Yeah, that's the number 1 drug in the United States. What do you think number 2 is? Now I hear heroin. What's number 3? Weed. So here's where it plays into effect. When we take a look at people going through alcohol treatment, first off, guys, we are the highest risk, males are, okay? When we look at the average age of people going through alcohol treatment right now, 46 to 55, okay? When we look at heroin, it's a younger crowd. It's like that post-college crowd, 26 to 30. You know what the leading age group is for marijuana treatment in the United States? You guys, 12 to 17 years old. So if we say that marijuana is safer than other drugs, why is it associated with two drugs? The two of these have much in common. Heroin is not socially acceptable, but alcohol is. It's easy to get, it's inexpensive, and it's socially acceptable, and that's what's happening with marijuana. That's why we're seeing these increases right here. Now, how about this one? Has everyone heard this? And nobody has ever overdosed on marijuana. Okay? So let's take a look at it. First off, understand this is a word game. Overdosed and or died as a result of. When you use one, I also want you to start thinking about the other. When we look at the definition of what an overdose is, very simple. It's too great of a dose. It's an excessive amount. Okay? It's a toxic level in the body. So when you look at this definition of what overdosing is, the first thing we think about an overdose is the guy laying there, blue, cyanotic, has got a needle in his arm and the little foam core coming out of his mouth from a heroin overdose. That's not always the case. That's not always the case. When we take a look at this, let me ask you a question. Can you overdose on heroin? Yes. Okay. How about this? Can you overdose on prescription drugs? The doctor gave you a script. Yeah, you can abuse that. You can overdose on it. Here's an easy one. Cocaine? Okay. How about this? And alcohol? Yeah, this one you drink yourself to a stupor and you put your brain stem to sleep. That's where all your autonomic nerve functions are at. And your brain just forgets to tell the heart to beat and forgets to tell you to breathe. You wake up dead. How about this one? Can you overdose on water? Actually, you can. Yeah, it's relatively rare. We see it a lot with the club and the ravers. But you can actually drink so much water that you completely off-balance your sodium and potassium levels, and it becomes a critical incident for healthcare, okay? Again, admittedly, it is rare, but it's possible. So now we go back to the trick question. Can you overdose on marijuana? No. Yeah. Think of it this way. Anytime you consume a substance, it doesn't matter what it is. If you consume a substance that creates a medical emergency, that you require medical treatment, you've just overdosed on it. You don't have to die, guys. You don't have to die. Let's take a look at some of these. Christine Kirk. Christine Kirk was a mother of 3, lived in a really affluent part of Denver, Colorado. Her husband came home one afternoon. He and some friends had been out. He stops at a dispensary, picks up a loose joint, picks up some edibles, smokes the joint. Like I said, we got very potent stuff in Colorado available on the market right now. Smokes the joint, eats the edible. As soon as he starts doing it, he starts freaking out. He's talking about the end of the world. He becomes hyper-paranoid. He actually at one point tells his wife, go get the gun and shoot me in the head. She freaks. 911, Denver emergency. So she's on the phone with the cops, telling what's going on. Yes, my husband's done this. Marijuana's involved. Next thing you know, has he got a gun? Well, there is a gun in the house. Where is he right now? She says, well, I really don't know. You know where he went? He went upstairs and grabbed the gun. Came back downstairs. And while she's on the phone with dispatch, Denver PD, all you hear is pop. He shoots her in the head. Now, when we look at this, here's the byproduct. She ends up dead. Mr. Kirk goes to prison for 25 and 30 years, and Grandma and Grandpa are raising the kids because they're now essentially orphans, okay? When we take a look at this next go-around, Andy Zorn. Andy Zorn was a paratrooper, served in Iraq and Afghanistan, suffered from PTSD when he came back home. His mother's a licensed lady named Sally Schindel. She knew about his problem with PTSD, knew that he smoked a lot of weed trying to cope with that. Problem is, that came to an end on March 4th of 14, because that's when she came home and found him hanging. He left a note, like a lot of suicides do, and explaining why he's made these choices. In his note, and I highlighted it so it's easier for you to read, you can't read it in the back, said, I'm going to get worse. My soul is already dead. Marijuana killed my soul, ruined my brain. I'm doing everyone a favor. He had got himself in such a box emotionally that he saw this as his only way out. This young man, Levi Pongi, was an exchange student from the Ivory Coast in Africa, was going to school up in Wyoming, north of Denver. He and his buddies came down on break, over at spring break. Supposed to be a good kid. Math major, physics, engineering, really smart kid. They decided that they were going to hit a dispensary. They get some edibles, they go back to the hotel room, and understand, he's got no history of drug use or psychological issues. What we end up finding is they check into the hotel, They start eating the edibles. He starts freaking out. Over a period of time, he ends up yelling at a lamp. He's talking to the sofa and ends up jumping out the window. Okay, he didn't overdose, but he did die as a result of this. Okay, these are sensational ones. There's less sensational ones. This kid, Daniel Juarez, great little soccer player that we had in the metro area. He ended up overdosing, over-smoking, got too high, stabbed himself 29 times. Did he overdose? No, but he died as a result of. That was the only toxin in his system. Luke Goodman was a tourist from Oklahoma. Came to Colorado on vacation, ate some edibles, ate way too many edibles, hit that delayed reaction from metabolism, he ended up shooting himself in the chest after having this whole paranoid episode. You know, we talk about the sensational stuff that hits the media, but here's the day-to-day stuff, guys. We've seen an increase in our accident rates and our fatal accidents where marijuana, THC, is becoming a predominant issue. I'm not telling you that marijuana caused the accident. That would be a BS statement to make to you. But I am telling you that we're seeing an increased prevalence of THC in our fatal accidents. So, here's what we get down to. Bottom line is, don't ever take anyone's information just at face value. Do your own homework, make your own decisions. Figure out what choices work best for you, okay? When someone offers you something, try to find out where it comes from. Okay, we've got data that does support the grades can affect your earning income, it can affect your performance athletically. Marijuana is addictive, okay? It does come back. You have choices to make. The hope and goal here is because we'll probably never see each other. But at some point in your life, when you're faced with that choice, understand you've got those two balls in your hand, what, you know, left to right, what's the good choice, what's the bad choice. Think about what you've learned. Think about what you've learned from your friends, think about what you learned from the schools, and think about what information's out there. Guys, my hope for you is a long and healthy life, okay? There's good things out there. There's lots of fun to have out there. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn you back over here to DJ, get the next presentation. If you guys need anything, we'll do Q&As afterwards, okay? Thank you, guys.